So I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, long time ago, like in 1951, actually, in Montgomery, Alabama. So, I was in Montgomery, Alabama up until 1966, and there were some issues going on in the town because of the last name of Parks and a famous aunt that I have. That sort of, Dad had enough of all the commotions and the threats, and he decided to move the family to New Jersey. So I was like the middle of the 9th grade. Family picked up, moved to Newark, New Jersey, which is a pretty culture shock for me, being next to the youngest kid. I mean, it's 5 years between my youngest brother and myself, and there were 7 kids in the family. Yeah. But
so we have to back up to Rosa Parks. So
I don't know. That slipped out. It wasn't supposed to come out.
But I just love that. I mean,
Do you?
I mean,
oh my God!
You have a relative named Rosa Parks.
That incident actually happened. I was born in '51. I think that happened like in '55. And there was a whole lot of things that happened before that. The bus boycott. My father was one of the drivers doing that. They shut down the bus system for a little, maybe a year and a month. So all of the African American families that had cars, the people who were going to work for the families that were well off, rather than ride the bus, the drivers of the people, the families that had cars, the African American families that had cars, they would pool together and go around and pick up the people that were going to work. So that shut the bus system down for almost, and they did that for about a year and a month.
And your dad drove people to work?
Yeah, we were one of the fortunate families. Dad was.
What did your dad do?
My dad was an upholsterer by trade. So he owned his own business for about 30 years. The 4 boys in the family, he taught us all how to do upholstery, just in case. He says, I'm going to teach you this trade because you never know. You might be out of a job. I hope you want to do this when you grow up. But, of course, only one did. And I was not that one. But I still have the skill set to do it. But yeah, that's sort of the reason. So there was a lot of things that happened before that bus boycott. My father was threatened on his job because his boss was actually a member of the Klan. They threatened him, and he was a short man in stature, but big as a man. And he didn't take kindly to threats. Fortunately, he had 8 brothers and cousins, and they all met at the house, and because he was threatened that they were going to come and bomb the house. And I can remember as a child sitting under the table listening to them talk about the strategy they were going to use if that actually happened. Unfortunately, it didn't, but we had people standing on blocks on guard and waiting for that to happen, and of course it never did happen. But shortly after that, I say shortly after that, maybe 2 or 3 months later, Dad decided to move the family to New Jersey. Didn't know anybody there. I don't know why he chose Jersey, but we moved there, and that's where I finished high school, in Jersey, which is a culture shock for me because going from a totally segregated school in Montgomery, Alabama, and moving all the way to Jersey, and at the time, in 1966, they were integrated schools. Coming from a small school in Montgomery and going to a big school, high school, and 3,000 kids, and out of that 3,000 kids, we had maybe 17 or 18 were African American, and out of that, only 4 of us were males. So, total culture shock for me, change. So I had 2 choices. I could just be mean and bitter and stay that way and not progress, or I could accept the change and embrace it and make the best of it. And I chose to do the latter. I excelled in sports. I played basketball, football, wrestled, ran track, and excelled in all of those. I think that made that actually, looking back on that now, that move probably was one of the best things that could have happened to me and makes me who I am today.
Because you learn to,
Internal locus of control, which is very, very important to me. I wasn't bothered by the things that went on around me. I just have that internal calmness and control. And believe you me, people tried to poke at that because they knew I was from Alabama. And if one person found that out, the whole school knew it. Everybody that, especially on all the sports team, you know, hey, you from Alabama, you talk funny. Yeah, I sure do. I would do stuff like that, you know, just play it off. But that makes me who I am today. It gave me a lot of character.
it seems like if you grew up in part in Montgomery, Alabama, in the 50s, going into the 60s, you learned a little bit about childhood trauma.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Several times, I didn't think I was going to be sitting here today. I've been beat with chains. I've been shot at. Actually, I've been shot once in the left shoulder. Beat up because everywhere we traveled in Montgomery, you know, the neighborhood, it wasn't a gang, just the neighborhood kids. We just, wherever we went, we were together. And it's about 7 of us that did that. And we were going to a Montgomery Rebels baseball game, which was literally on the other side of town from where we live. And we were walking. And I do recall walking out of the stadium, having to walk back home, which to me was maybe a couple of miles in reality, but it seemed like a long way. So we were chased by a pickup truck with the rebel flag in the back, and we scattered, and they came at us with chains and jack handles, and so we fought back. And one of my best buddies was actually hit across the head and suffered some traumatic brain. He had a traumatic TBI, traumatic brain injury. So stuff like that. I mean, you know, yeah, you live with it, you get over it. And at the time it was going on, it was traumatic, and it's in me now, and it's a part of who I am, but I can't just concentrate on that. I have to go above that.